Good morning. Come on in and get a seat. We are ready to begin. I'm Robert E. Jones. I'm the director of the center here, and I want to welcome all of you here. It's delightful to have people working together for justice, for righteousness, and the common good. And we're so thankful that you're here this morning. So on behalf of the president of United Theological Seminary, Reverend Dr. Wendy Dykeman, I want to welcome you to this place. It's a special pleasure for me, too, because I have not had an opportunity since my formative years to be with Congressman Conyers. Congressman Conyers and I were together back at Yale in New Haven fighting for the Humphrey Hawkins bill when it was first beginning to be initiated. And I'm so thankful. And you know, when you're in school, you're trying to find yourself. What are you going to be about? He was inspirational to me in terms of charting the path. And those of you who are here know that I'm involved in social action. Part of it is because of his responsibility when I was a student back in jail. So I'm so thankful to be here to represent him today. With that, again, thank you for being here. And I know that this is the beginning of a great effort, and we're going to provide jobs for people who need. Amen.
He may not remember me from some 30 years ago when I first became a lobbyist for the Ohio Education Association and went to a Congressional Black Caucus meeting in Washington, D.C., and I had the pleasure of meeting him then and listening to the goals and aspirations that they had for all people, including African Americans. And it was one of those kinds of things, for those who have known me for the several decades in this community, that I've tried to pattern my life after trying to make good things happen for people, especially little people. That's a passion of mine. So I'm going to take this opportunity right now on behalf of our mayor, Nan Whaley, hereby sends this official greeting, and congratulations to Representative John Conyers in recognition for helping host the 2015-2016 Jobs for All National Tour. Okay. Thank you for this great opportunity for our community. Your ideas on job creation, health care, and raising the national minimum wage will continue to elevate the jobs issue to a national prominence. Adopted by the Dayton City Commission December 5th, 2015. Signed by Mayor Nan Whaley, our Mayor Dean Lovelace, Joey Williams, Matt Joseph, and myself, Jeffrey Mims. Now, we had another one here that's a little bit more detailed. I'm going to try to do this very quickly because we'd be here all night if we talked about all of your accomplishments. We certainly deserve that if we chose to stay. But just wanted to mention that you are from Michigan, represented in the 13th Congressional District, and that you were the first African-American dean of the House of Representatives and served in Congress since 1965. This year I graduated from high school. Founding member of the Congressional Black Caucus, as we mentioned before. Additionally, introduced the first bill in Congress to make Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s birthday a national holiday in 1968. Additionally, you have worked to introduce a commission to study the reparation proposals for African Americans Act, this House Resolution 40, that calls for a commission to research the history of slavery and its effect on people across the nation. Also, Representative Conyers proposed House Resolution 288, which condemns religious intolerance, which we also know is very, very important, especially as we look at the kinds of things that are happening with our brothers across the nation. Representative Conyers also has made principled stands against government intrusion into the lives of our citizens across the nation. And now, therefore, I, Nan Whaley, Mayor, City of Dayton, and the Dayton City Commissioners, do hereby proclaim December 5th, 2015 as John Conyers Day. Thank you again, sir.
Top of the morning, everyone. What a pleasure it is to be with you and with the distinguished men that are here on the dais. I am deeply indebted to Mayor Nan Whaley for this proclamation, which incredibly gives me the honor and distinction of having a day named in my honor. Therefore, I, Nan Whaley, Mayor of the City of Dayton, do hereby proclaim December 5th, 2015 as John Conyers Day in Dayton. Mayor, I thank you and citizens and supporters for this honor. I will carry it with me. I'm going to frame it, and then I'm going to have it put into the congressional record and remember this for the rest of my career. And for those of you who know me, you know that the one single top domestic priority is for this, the wealthiest nation in the history of the world, that the United States become a full employment sponsor of jobs for everybody in the country. And that should be our number one domestic goal. That seems simple and obvious, and what we will be doing is building up support for it and understanding for it everywhere I go in the United States. We want this country to officially go on record, and I'm working on some things to get back to the outgoing number 44, the President of the United States, to help lead and continue this legacy of the simple economic goal of jobs for everybody in America. And also with it, a trust fund for training people for jobs who may not have the skills for a job if it were presented to them. It's sad to say that our education system has disappointed so many people by leaving them unprepared for the great responsibilities of keeping a job, because that's what everything is based on. And so while Barack Obama, our president, has presided over job creation and has done a lot and gone a long way to ensure that all Americans have experienced economic recovery, we have this consideration. In addition to the millions of Americans that are unemployed, 3.5 million former workers are jobless or have, worst of all, given up searching for a job. And as a result, they're not even included in the unemployment rate, because if you're not looking for a job, you're not counted as unemployed. And I think you know what that does to a family, where there are obligations, there are children, there are elder people that need special assistance, and that furthermore, there are more than 6 million Americans who are forced to work part-time because they can't find a full-time job. 6 million Americans. And that's higher than at any time since the early 1990s. And so we still need over 3 million jobs to get back to reach the so-called pre-recession 2008 levels. In many urban and rural pockets of our country, including parts of my district in Detroit, the unemployment rate is still hovering at around 24 to 26% unemployment. And I don't need to remind you that people of color suffer far worse unemployment because our rate of unemployment is 9.4%, nearly double the average unemployment rate. And in Ohio, African American unemployment is 3.3 times higher than it is for whites. And so for this reason, brothers and sisters, I've introduced a number of bills that will help return America to full employment. My key measure, and I have 39 co-sponsors, my signature bill is H.R. 1000. And I was with your dynamic member of Congress, Joyce Beatty, Congresswoman Beatty, last night, and we had a wonderful event and a great discussion about this subject. What we do in the Humphrey Hawkins 21st Century Full Employment and Training Act. Why did I name it after Humphrey and Hawkins? Well, everybody knows Hubert Humphrey and his great work, but maybe everybody doesn't know that Gus Hawkins was the one that created the full employment bill, and he went to then Senator Humphrey, and he joined with him. And so I'm carrying on this great noble effort to what I consider the most important domestic piece of legislation, to create work opportunities and training programs in areas including construction, infrastructure repair, energy efficiency, education, health care, and neighborhood renovation. The bill is fully funded by a very tiny tax on speculative transactions by Wall Street, hedge funds, and traders, and will not add any cost to the federal debt whatsoever. Despite causing our economic crisis, we gave Wall Street a bailout, and the American people, the workers, never got a bailout. Billions of dollars went in to keep the people that created the bubble that finally burst. We helped, and now it's our turn and obligation to help working people and their families all across this country. So we must continue to build support for H.R. 1000 so that the richest, most powerful country in the history of governments all around the world can guarantee the right to a job or to training for a job. And so in addition to that, we want to create in the Federal Reserve a new way to create and facilitate job creation, because the Federal Reserve Board says that, look, if we support creating jobs, we'll create inflation, Congressman. Don't you understand? We've got to keep inflation down, and to do that, we don't want to say much about jobs. We want to talk about the interest rate that goes to all of the people that get all the money. And so I share the view of progressive economists, Joseph Stiglitz, for example, who say that slowing the economy to stop millions of Americans from getting jobs and pay raises would be a serious error. And what's wrong with a $15 an hour minimum wage? That's a very reasonable proposal, and we're pushing that with every bit of energy and commitment that we can bring. And the cause is growing. And what a Federal Reserve Board is trying to do with Mrs. Yellen is to raise the interest rates. And we consider that something that would slow the economy and hurt job creation and wage growth. And so I've got a bill to deal with that. And then I joined with my colleague, Senator Bernie Sanders, who's championed a new bill to deal with young people. It's called the Employ Young Americans Act. Nearly 6 million youngsters are neither in school or working. Only 1 in 5 African Americans between the ages of 16 and 19 are employed. 1 in 5. This is a national emergency that demands immediate federal action. And so I'm introducing the bill in the House. It provides for immediate funding to states and localities to employ young Americans between the ages of 16 and 24 and provide job training to hundreds of thousands of young people. In the words of the greatest man I've ever known, Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., if a man doesn't have a job or an income, he has neither life nor liberty nor the possibility for the pursuit of happiness. He merely exists. And so, my friends, let's build a full employment society so that people all across this land can truly thrive. And full employment. And when I go back to Washington, I am going to tell people of what's happened to me in Ohio, in Dayton, and other places, with your great Congresswoman Beatty. We're going to continue to move this forward. And there will be other places that we will be going after the holidays. And we want you to know about it. And we want to come back to Dayton. This isn't just popping in and keeping going somewhere else. It's bringing everybody together for the most important domestic issue in Washington, D.C. and the Congress. A job for everybody in America. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Debbie Silverstein. I am the State Director of Single Payer Action Network of Ohio. And we are big fans of Congressman Conyers because of his sponsorship for years of H.R. 676, the Expanded and Improved Medicare for All Act. And, something that goes hand in hand, job is fundamental, but your health is too. We believe health care is a human right, and we believe in the human right to health, which also includes adequate nutrition, adequate housing, a clean and safe environment. It also has to include a job at living wages. And here in Ohio, the top 10 jobs in the most demand for workers, only one of them provides a living wage. That's our problem here in Ohio. We have some speakers from the Dayton area that are going to expand on what Congressman Conyers has talked about for jobs, and also going to talk to you about the health care issue. And we have with us this morning Charles Morton, from the Executive Secretary of the Dayton Miami AFL-CIO. We have Dr. Philip Harvey, who is a professor of law and economics at Rutgers University and one of the people who has advised Representative Conyers on the design and drafting of H.R. 1000. And he'll be talking about the main features of H.R. 1000 and what it's designed to achieve. We also have Dr. Morris Brown, a family physician and a community activist and very strong single-payer advocate that is going to explain the health care part of this. Remember, jobs and health go hand in hand. One of the things I tell people is health follows wealth. We know that. We can just determine longevity by zip code. But medicine follows money. And when everyone has access to health care, then medicine moves out in order to provide for those people, so those underserved areas get provided for more. So we'll start right now, with Charles Morton.
Thank you. Thank you very much, and I'll be fairly brief. I want to start off by thanking the National Jobs for All Coalition for getting this important program scheduled, and Logan and his organization for spearheading here in Dayton. And I want to thank Reverend Jones for his hospitality here. And of course, the congressman. I mean, this man, he's been one of the working people's biggest allies in Washington, D.C., and we have to recognize that, and we have to support him. Thank you. The Dayton Miami Valley AFL-CIO is concerned about the loss of jobs, of course, and the underemployment, which is not much spoke about very often. And by saying underemployment, I mean folks that are out there working a full-time job, they're not making enough money to support their family, and that has a great disastrous effect on the family. And so we work hard to try to increase people's wages in their jobs and help them any way we can. But, in this country, we've had over 51,000 manufacturing companies move overseas. And, I know you listen to certain TV shows or radio stations, it's all about the unions did this. The unions run the workers out of this country. Oh, they make too much money. No. Right now at this point, I think there's like a 15% difference in the wages in China workers and American workers. So it's a lot of other factors that makes a company move overseas, being no regulations on the environmental protections, no labor laws, no safety laws, so many other options or reasons that cause companies to move overseas. And so we need to fight that. Those 51,000 manufacturing jobs that we lost equal to over 2.7 million jobs. And about almost 1.5 million of those was in the electronics industry. And we all go out and buy our TVs and our phones and everything, which we can't do without. I understand. I'm guilty as everybody else. But we have to do something as consumers in this country to change that. We have companies that had made a product in this country for years, hundreds of years, paid decent wages. Now they make that same product overseas, paying a fraction of what they used to pay the workers. Then they export it back to our country, and we still pay high dollar for it. I mean, perfect example, Nike shoes. We all love Nike shoes. You know, we'll spend $150 for a pair of Nike shoes. Well, that kid over there is making $2 a day to make them. I mean, where's the justice in that? And so, you know, unemployment, we can look at the news, and just like the congressman said, it looks rosy, unemployment down to 5-point-something%. But the real unemployment is still up around 20%. Because, like the congressman said, there's people that quit looking. And so they're not counted on the unemployment rolls. Or they're making such a small amount of money that they're working, but they can't support their family. And that's not good for families. And that's one of the reasons we're having a problem with families staying together. I mean, a job creation would solve so many problems in this country. People want to work. I don't care who you are, you know, or anything. You want to work. People, it makes a person feel good. It gives them worth, and helps them support their families. And that's what we have to do as a country, get that back together. And we need to make sure that our leaders in Washington quit doing these crazy trade deals that pits our company or our workers having to compete with people making 50 cents a day or 50 cents an hour. That's impossible. We can't compete with that. And so it's our hope that our leaders in D.C. and with our pressure and with the AFL-CIO's help and their pressure, we're going to make a difference. And especially when we have elected officials like Congressman Conyers, we will make a difference. But it's going to take everybody working together. And
Thank you, Mr. Morton. And next we have Dr. Philip Harvey from Rutgers University.
My role this morning is to explain H.R. 1000, the signature job creation bill that Representative Conyers has introduced in Congress. Now, the single most important thing you need to understand in order to understand why H.R. 1000 is structured the way it is that it's predicated on the assumption that access to a decent job is a human right. And I'm going to say that again because it's very, very important if this movement is going to succeed that people begin to think of this as a human rights struggle. We need to secure the right to a decent job along with the right to health care, education, and adequate income support for people who can't support themselves. It's a full panoply of human rights, and it's our task to make sure that the United States secures them. Like other human rights, government has a duty to secure the right to work, the right to a decent job. And H.R. 1000 is designed to do that. It is designed to secure the right to a decent job in the United States. Now, how would it do that? Here the story gets a little complicated, but not too complicated, because the job creation strategy that H.R. 1000 would deploy is not the strategy that most people associate with progressive job creation initiatives. The conventional strategy that progressives have supported for the last 70 years and relied upon is one that uses government stimulus spending to promote job creation in the private sector. The strategy that H.R. 1000 relies upon is a slightly older progressive American strategy, the one developed by New Deal progressives and tested in programs like the Civilian Conservation Corps and the Works Progress Administration. The singular characteristic of this strategy is that it relies on direct job creation to combat unemployment rather than simply the stimulus of private sector job creation. Now, why prefer the New Deal strategy over the conventional strategy? Well, there are 6 reasons. The first is that it creates 2 to 4 times as many jobs per dollar of stimulus spending. In fact, if Congress had decided to spend the $800 billion that back in 2009 were voted on a conventional stimulus program that was predicted to and did in fact create or save 3 to 4 million jobs. If that amount of money had been devoted to an HR 1000 style job creation effort, it would have reduced the unemployment rate in the United States to 2% for 2 full years. And 2 years later, Congress enacted, this didn't get as much publicity, but it was a second effort that cost about $800 billion, though that was entirely in the form of tax cuts. It was after the election in 2010, and that's the only kind of stimulus that the Republicans would support. But if that $800 billion had been devoted to direct job creation, it would have kept us at that 2% level of unemployment for another 2, actually more years, because that point, the economy would have begun to recover and there wouldn't have been a need for as much job creation. So the first point, HR 1000 has adopted a strategy that creates more jobs. Secondly, it creates those jobs more quickly. The job creation is front-loaded rather than back-loaded. You don't wait for the economy to recover to give people jobs. You give people jobs as a way to make the economy recover. Third, it distributes the jobs more fairly, because when you have a stimulus, most of the jobs get created wherever you decide to spend the stimulus. And the problem with that is that that's a very scattered and uneven distribution of the stimulus dollars, whereas HR 1000 spends the dollars where the unemployed people are, which means in every community in the country where there are unemployed people, that's where the money gets spent in proportion to the amount of unemployment that exists in those communities. Fifth, it's a strategy, fourth, no, that was just 3. Fourth, it provides better protection against unemployment during a recession. In fact, one of the things you need to understand about recessions is that it's not really necessary for people to suffer unemployment during a recession any more than it is necessary for people to go hungry during a recession. We don't let them go hungry. Well, people need food. We do what's necessary to provide them with food until the economy recovers so they can provide it for themselves. Same thing with jobs. Yes, the economy is going to experience recessions, but we can provide jobs for people so that they have something to live on equivalent to what they had before the recession started until the economy recovers. This was really the point of departure for the New Deal strategy. It wasn't really intended so much to get the economy out of the Great Depression. It was designed to help people survive the Great Depression. And that's one of the functions that HR 1000 would perform. Sixth, or fifth, it's a strategy that can be implemented at the local level as well as at the national level, and this is very important for the eventual success of this strategy. We know that HR 1000 is not going to be passed in this Congress, but there are places in the country where progressives have enough political power that they may be able to implement the strategy on the local level. And by building experience with and demonstrated success in the use of this strategy to combat unemployment, we think that the road to eventually passage of the bill in Congress would be paved. And sixth and finally, and this in my view is actually the most important of the advantages of the HR 1000 strategy, and that is that it is in fact capable of achieving genuine full employment, which is not something that the conventional strategy is able to achieve. Indeed, economists have a special term that they use to describe the lowest rate of unemployment that it's possible to achieve using a strategy of job creation that relies entirely on economic growth, which is the conventional strategy that we are accustomed to. And they refer to that as the NIRU. It's an acronym for a term that you'd never remember, and I'm not going to inflict upon you. But the consensus among progressive economists today is that the NIRU is about 4%. That's the lowest level of unemployment we can actually shoot for with conventional policies. Now, the problem with 4% unemployment is that it isn't even close to full employment. The last time the United States had that level of unemployment was 15 years ago in December 2000, when the unemployment rate was actually below 4%. It was 3.9%. The economy was booming, and there were 4.9 million job openings in the country. And that sounds pretty good until you compare it to the 5.6 million unemployed workers who were looking for jobs that month, the additional 3.2 million involuntary part-time workers, people who had part-time jobs but wanted full-time jobs, and the 4.2 million people who wanted a job but were not counted as unemployed because they weren't looking in the ways that are required for you to obtain that designation in government statistics. And so at a time when employers were trying to fill 4.9 million jobs, we had 13.1 million people who needed and wanted jobs. Now imagine a game of musical chairs. There are 13 players in the game, but only 5 chairs. What do we need to do in order to make sure that everybody is a chair? It's simple. We've got to get 8 more chairs. And the same is true of the labor market. Back in 2000, even though the unemployment rate was 3.9%, even though we could not use economic growth to drive it further down without causing inflation, that didn't mean we had to be satisfied with that gap in employment, with that job shortage. And the singular characteristic of H.R. 1000 is it's designed to get us past that point. Now, how many jobs would H.R. 1000 create? Well, actually, 1/3 of the money collected under H.R. 1000 would be devoted to job training, 2/3 would be devoted to job creation. The job training, though, would be job training in which the trainees received stipends, so it's paid job training. The amount of money that would be available for it is 10 times as much as we currently have available for job training. And perhaps most important of all, if you talk to people who run job training programs, we could guarantee a job for every successful graduate using the skills they obtained in the training program, because that's where the other 2/3 of the H.R. 1000 money comes in creating the jobs necessary to make sure that the opportunities that we need to give people not just the motive, but the experience of success going through a job training program to then move into a job using what they've been trained to do. Now, would H.R. 1000 create enough jobs to actually close the economy's job gap entirely? And the answer to that is not immediately. It would create about 6 million jobs and training slots, and whenever the economy's level of unemployment was above the NAIRU level, that 4% inflation barrier, it would create another 2 million jobs through its stimulus effect, but that still only totals 8 million. And I just told you, well, actually I didn't, but today the job gap that's equivalent to the 8.1 million job gap that I said existed in 2000, today the job gap is larger. It's 13.9 million. So H.R. 1000 would immediately create 8 million jobs, but we need 13.9. However, it is designed in a way that over time it would actually achieve genuine full employment. It would actually provide jobs for all those job wanters in the economy. Now, the reason that H.R. 1000 over time would have that effect of reducing the number of jobs we had to create in order to achieve full employment is something else that I'm not going to try to explain to you today because there's not time, and quite frankly, the explanation might bore you also. So you're just going to, well, don't take my word for it. If you're interested, please talk to me about it, because I like nothing better than to explain the economics of H.R. 1000. But it is designed to get us to genuine full employment. I think that my best guess would be that it would probably take a decade or so for us to get there, but once we got there, it would keep us at genuine full employment, jobs for all, no job gap at all. It would keep us there, and would keep us there notwithstanding the fact that the economy would still experience recession. Since, as I said, we would go through recessions when the economy dipped, but we wouldn't have the unemployment because H.R. 1000 would step in to provide the jobs that the recession destroyed until the economy fully recovered. But even when it fully recovers, we still need it to create all those jobs beyond 4% unemployment needed to get us down to genuine full employment, which is probably 1 1 to 2%. Okay? Now, where would the money come from? I'm not going to address that because Representative Conyers has already described roughly the tax that would generate the funds. As I've indicated, a third of that money would go for job training. 2/3 of it would go for job creation. Who would create the jobs? Well, the jobs would be created essentially by you all, because the design of H.R. 1000 is to use the money to provide funding for not-for-profit organizations, educational institutions, Indian tribes, state and local governments, other public sector agencies that develop project plans and submit those plans for approval to the Department of Labor, which would be the distributor of the funds. They would then get the funds to actually create the jobs. So if you are in an organization that prioritizes housing, create a project to build houses. If it prioritizes green energy, create a project to put solar panels on everybody's house, free. If your priority is education, create a project to give every teacher 1 or 2 teachers' aides, if it would help, and fill the other unfilled positions in schools. Whatever the focus of your particular interests are, H.R. 1000 is a route to achieve your goals.
Thank you, Dr. Harvey. Poverty is an indicator of health that is just as strong, we're finding, as your cholesterol levels, your blood pressure, whether or not you smoke. Primary care doctors are increasingly being asked to screen their patients for signs of poverty, inadequate nutrition, inadequate housing, and the issues that can affect their health. And so health is greatly attached to the jobs and jobs at living wages. And the two really do go hand in hand, and which is why we're showcasing both of them together. Dr. Morris Brown is going to talk to you about his firsthand experiences, too, in dealing with patients that don't have adequate health coverage, that don't have their basic daily needs met, and the issues that attack their health, and why we need H.R. 676. The first time I met you, Congressman, was in Kent, Ohio. You came to the Barack Obama campaign headquarters in 2008. And so many people found out you were there and came to see you, it all spilled out into the streets. And so we were out there in Main Street in Kent, Ohio, and the California Nurses Association happened to be in town with their big bus that came by, and it turned into a rally for 676. And the cheer was, healthcare, we need a fix. We need H.R. 676. We needed it then, we need it now.
So with all that you heard from the professor, Dr. Harvey, you guys definitely got a good backdrop about this issue of jobs. So let's start where he left off, because without a job, you're not going to have health care, or it's going to be marginal, and that was before Obamacare. If you go back to 50 years ago, even they talked about the New Deal, we can look at what was happening with the New Deal as it relates to health care. Not only were jobs on the table, but also the issue then was health care costs. The health care budget was based, costs were astronomical. They identified it as a potential major cost issue, meaning we could not afford to have people keep going in the emergency rooms. We could not have people showing up with cancers in later stages. And Roosevelt at that time designed a bill quite similar to the bill that that Congressman Connors proposed, which is House Bill 676. He proposed at that time universal health. So this conversation of universal health, single payer, started 50 years ago. Now, I'm a bit, let me keep you up to what happened, though. As you could hear from the history of the jobs promotion from both speakers, the job issue, even though it's not where it should be, it did improve. Things improved, and things moved forward, and we've had some highs and lows as it relates to jobs. But some of the very things that the New Deal put in then is why we are doing so good with jobs. But you know what died on the vine? Universal health. Universal health got no traction. Universal health got no attention. In fact, he was called a socialist because he proposed universal health.
So that, my people, is the problem. Our policymakers have identified the problem, but we can't move that button at all toward universal health until Obamacare came along. We'll get back to Obamacare later because now, of course, it's been appealed and we want to go back as business as usual, and business as usual may not be all that good. So how good is our health care? Really, how good are we? We're the world leader in health care, right? Everybody agree? We got the best health care system in America, right? In America, yes. In the world, best health care system in the world. Nobody agrees. You guys are very knowledgeable. Well, let me tell you about a study that was just put out by the World Health Organization where they looked at the top 10 industrialized countries in the world. Sweden, France, Germany, United Kingdom, Israel. There were a total of 10, and the U.S. was also in that group. And they compared the health care cost and the health care outcomes of the U.S. against these 10. And guess who came in dead last? The U.S. came in dead last. So what we think is the best and the brightest for us may be the best and the brightest for some, but it's not the best and the brightest for all. And universal means all. So that's the whole issue here today, people, as we look at this issue of health care. So the issue of disparities is really part of the problem. Access is an issue, sure enough. People need to have insurance. That would be an access issue. But then this issue of disparities has to come in. Because if you would take out the brown people in America, the yellow people in America, the black people in America, and sometimes even the poor white people in America, you may have to take them out too. Guess then where we rank. We rank number 1 in the world. Meaning this system is working for those folk that are making the policies. This system does work for the CEOs sitting at the table deciding what your deductible is going to be. This system does work when they make a decision that you're going to pay $6,000 and then $600 a month before their insurance that you bought pays for the first aspirin. This system works for them, and they have excellent outcomes. Their babies live. Their babies survive. While our babies, brown babies, black babies, yellow babies, mixed babies are dying. So if you look at infant mortality, that's the best indicator of the health of your system. We come dead last. We come dead last. And what are they attacking now? Planned Parenthood. That's what their attacks are, Planned Parenthood. Now you can say, I'm not talking about abortion, folks, because that's the image they would want you to think. Planned Parenthood does a whole lot more than provide counseling for abortion. They provide services. They're going to take that away. So what's going to happen to these women that's getting prenatal care and even prevention from Planned Parenthood? It goes out the wazoo. So now we got these poor women again having babies without prenatal care, and so guess what? It's going to happen in for mortality. It's going to go up. It's going to go up. So I come before you today to tell you that this is complex. There is no simple solution, but the solutions that Congressman Conyers has proposed for 20 years? I think every year he has put this bill before Congress, Bill 676 before Congress. For 20 years he has put this up, and it gets no traction. If it goes in the committee, it dies in the committee and doesn't come out. And why is that? Why is that? It's because the insurance lobby, the hospital lobbies, these people with deep pockets and lots of money don't want to see universal health. They do not want to see a single payer. And we got a very small group of folk that's running this country. We got a very small group of folk that are making these decisions. We got a very small group of folk that are answering to big business, big money, and that's the problem, people. We will not have equity in health care. We will not have babies that are living to full maturity. We will not have justice in the hospitals. We will not have insurance prescriptions that are affordable. We will not have doctors that can go into all the communities and provide the same care to everybody. We will not have that until we support House Bill 676.
Thank you, Dr. Morris. When Medicare was enacted in 1965, it was a fallback position. The real goal there was national health insurance for everyone, but they didn't feel that they could get that through, and rather than lose the whole argument, they went with passing Medicare and Medicaid. You know, back in those days, we still cared about the poor and wanted to try and help them, so we did Medicaid. And the elderly we respected, and so for those over 65, we passed a health care program because at that point, most seniors could not get health insurance. Of course, now people are living longer, so the insurance companies want to make some money off of them. But how many of you have heard of Martin Shkreli? The CEO of Turing Pharmaceutical. He's a former hedge fund manager that bought this pharmaceutical company. He took a generic pill that was used to treat infections in people with immune disorders and raised the price on that 5,000% because he could. This is what's wrong with healthcare in America. Another CEO of Valiant Pharmaceuticals said, "We're not in business to help sick people. We are in business to make money for our shareholders." And that's what's wrong with healthcare in America. And we have got to work to return it to its moral mission, because that has been lost. It's all greed at this point in time. We have time scheduled for questions and answers and comments from the audience.
First of all, thank you all for coming, and I do appreciate the information that you've presented. I wanted to make the comment that all of the things that have been presented here would be negated if this TPP passes the Congress. So what is being done for us to organize and make sure that this Trans-Pacific Partnership doesn't get passed? Because when it gets passed, there is no chance that those issues that have been brought forth here can be brought to fruition.
Sounds like a question for me. Brothers and sisters, we are opposed to TPP, the Transportation Pacific TPP. We're opposed to it 100%, and there is a great number of letters coming in from organizations and citizens from around the country, and it is being resisted completely, and I don't think it's going to pass. And we're going to, with forums like this and other meetings, we're going to continue this all across the country so that TPP doesn't stand a chance. It lowers the availability of good health care, and it is not in our interest whatsoever. And I'm so glad someone raised that question. Thank you very much, sir, for doing that.
I really appreciated everyone's presentation today. I want to be very brief here. I'm a slave, and I'm not a good one. Montgomery County has the highest amounts of infant mortality. We're an incarceration state. We lock up more black people in this country than anyone. We're not taking care of that. Our parents don't go to the schools and help the teachers. That's where the issue is going to be. And it's going to take years for parents. Why aren't parents coming? Because they're out providing. By the time they get home, they don't have time to make meals. They don't have time to take care of the things they need to be doing within the home. Black violence, go to any movie house, everything is about guns. Look at TV, any kind of thing you see advertised, it's about guns. We've got to deal with that. We've got to deal with that. Look at Hollywood. Hollywood is getting a free kind of move on that. They deal with the mafia. They deal with the CIA to make money. Healthcare is very important. I appreciate the time to be able to voice my concerns. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. With the jobs bill and the program that everyone had stated about going, we've heard about ban the box. What's going to transpire when these people who have felonies, when the people maybe have just spent time in Montgomery County, City of Dayton jail, what about ban the box? I understand that in Cincinnati that ban the box is effective, but when the employer runs your rap sheet, it still shows. A friend of mine said dealing with the BOP is a BLIP, okay? And because her son was incarcerated. But be that as it may, how is this going to help them? Who can help them when they run the rap sheet and they've eradicated on the application, ban the box, but the employer can still run an investigative sheet on you? What do you do? And I understand it's all legal.
There are, one of the things I teach employment and labor law, and there are places in the country where it is unlawful to discriminate on the basis of a person's record as an offender, and that means that it's not permitted to ask for that information, and the information is not disclosable. Certainly, there is a need for national legislation that would make that unlawful discrimination. But what the job bill would do is provide them with jobs notwithstanding their record, and provide them with the demonstrated employment record in the program that would, even if the law doesn't change, persuade some employers outside the program to provide them work. But to the extent that they didn't have those opportunities, they'd always have a good job in the program. But hopefully we'd get legislation enacted that would make it unlawful to discriminate on that basis.
There is legislation to eliminate this provision completely. We do have the box removed, but you can still ask the question inside and that's still not. So we moved a little way because originally, once they see the box check, they throw the resume away right off the bat, and that's what we've ended. But we've got to go further, as has been said.
I want to thank all the speakers. This was lovely. We talked about a lot of things that Senator Representative Conyers is doing nationally. You can get involved in your state. The state of Ohio, we have a single-payer group. It's called SPAN Ohio, Single Payer Action Network Ohio. And we have a bill that we present to the, I think in the Senate right now, 137, NEB, to expand and look into a single-payer program for the state of Ohio. There are other states that are looking into this as well, Colorado, Vermont, and as a state-by-state basis, we can also look into expanding single-payer in our state and eventually maybe spread that out and eventually win something like 676 nationally.